there's so many things that I want to thank you for. Lord, I thank you for your grace. I thank you for your mercy, God. I thank you for your love. Thank you for favor, oh God. God, if I had 10,000 tongues, I couldn't say enough thank yous, and I couldn't praise you enough. So in this song, I'll simply tell you I love you. And God, I thank you for everything you've done. Lord, there's so many things that you've done for me. Blessings unconditional, they seem to overtake me. Your hand of mercy proving faithful and true. Jesus, how can I express my thanks to you for your grace and kindness, oh, agent of days. I'll give you thanks, oh Lord, now and always. Oh, I just want to say thank you for your love. Thank you. Thank you for the blood. Thanks to you for all of the times that you brought me through. Lord, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your grace. Thank you, Lord, for keeping me safe. Thanks to you that I can share the good news of a Savior, to give someone a reason just to tell you thanks. Oh Lord, yeah, thank you, Lord. Lord, it's not enough to give a simple praise to the one who has blessed me in so many ways. Nothing I could say or do could really show my gratitude to you, Lord. One God, one love, one faith. To you I give you praise. Three blessed Trinity, you mean so much to me. And you showered me with love, even when I turned away. Lord, I could never repay you, so I'll just say, I just want to say thank you for your love. Thank you for the blood. Thanks to you for all of the times that you brought me through. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your grace. Thank you, Lord, for keeping me safe. Thanks to you that I can share the good news of a Savior, to give someone a reason just to tell you for your love. Lord, I thank you for the blood. Thanks to you for all of the times that you brought me through. Lord, I thank you for your grace, Lord, for keeping me safe. And I can share the good news of a Savior, give someone a reason just to tell you thanks. Oh Lord, thank you.
All right, all right, all right, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all, wherever you might be this morning. My name is Oliver Blue, and I am excited about this now moment. I'm just excited. I'm so happy. I'm so full of joy and at peace. And I am so delighted that you have decided to join me in this hour. Sometimes I say an hour and it goes on, but I'm just so happy that you're here. Especially those that have been a part of this project and actually going through the course and the training of the the mind training that we're going through, that this workbook course is offering us in A Course in Miracles. So happy that you're still on this journey with me. And maybe you're just popping in, and maybe the first time you have an opportunity to hear what's being said in these daily lessons. And if you are, we welcome you too. And so I'm just delighted for this opportunity. I will be your temporary guide today as we examine workbook lesson 94 from A Course in Miracles. I'll be your temporary guide. Why? Because you have a permanent guide. We all do. We all have an inner guide. We all have all have an inner voice, an inner teacher that is there just for us. Been there all our life. That speaks within our consciousness, within our awareness. And this whole project that we're on, which is a whole year of going through a process of being transforming the way that we think and the way that we perceive, transforming that from our conditionings, how we have been conditioned by the world, how we have been mentored by ideas that are based on a belief in separation, and not based on a belief that humanity and divinity has always been one, and separation is not a possibility in reality. And so this is a course in reality, and so we are here each day sharing the ideas out of this workbook in A Course in Miracles. And we are on day 94, and we have made giant steps. I mean, even in my own personal experience of going through this again for the first time as a teacher. I've gone through it many times as a student, but this time I am going through it as your temporary guide, your teacher, and not being any different than you, not being on any higher or lower pedestal than you, but going through this course, not only teaching the ideas of equality, but we're actually sharing and experience these ideas that there is equality only in reality. That in reality there's only light. In reality, there's only the knowing of the truth. In reality, there's only one law, and we call that the law of love or the law of God. So we have learned that God and love, which are only symbols, because can you really put your hand on love or put your hand on God and say, here it is right here, and show it as a manifestation? No. So the idea of God or love is it's only to be experienced. It can only be experienced. It can't be legislated. There will never be one world religion where all of us agree that this is the religion of the world, or the way it should be, or the way it should be experienced. No. There would never, the Course teaches that there would never be a universal experience. As hard as mankind has tried over the years. It can't be legislated. Love can't be legislated. The idea of God or supreme being can't be legislated. But what is not only possible, but is required, is that we all have a universal experience. All of humanity. It's not even if it will happen. The reality of God is that what he guarantees that it will happen, and that all humanity will eventually what have a universal experience of waking up from this idea or belief in this separated self. And we will all come to the knowing of the truth that there's only one self, or one being, or one reality, and that we all share in that one reality. And you might ask, Oliver, how's that possible? Well, there's many symbols of that gives us an insight into that reality. I mean, we all breathe the same we all breathe the same breath. We all breathe the same air. As though, even though it appears that there's 7.8 billion different individuals breathing their own air in isolation, but in reality, we all share the same air. That's a good illustration. We all share the same we all share the same universe. All 7.8 billion of us live in the same one universe. So it's a shared we share the universe. It's like we share the air. The blood that flows in our vein. Even though it appears that we are these individuated selves with our own personal, private bloods that we share, that we have, but in reality, there's only one blood, and we all share the same blood. And blood is only symbolic of life, so we can say that we all share the same life. There's only one life. There's not 700. There's not 7.8 billion different life, but there's only the one life, and we all share it. Just like in the realm of thought, we all have access to the same ethos of thought, even though we think that our individual thoughts are private and individual thoughts. What I'm thinking in private, I mean, only I know what I'm thinking. And these thoughts are my thoughts. They belong to no one else. That's the way we think from a limited point of view. But when we transcend our limitation as a made self, we enter into an awareness that we all share the same thought system. That there are no private thoughts. We imagine that they're private and they're intimate to us, but in reality, all of us have access to the same thoughts. It's just a matter of where we focus our attention. It's just a matter of where do we focus our attention? It's like when you want to watch something on television, what do? You go to the frequency of the channel that you want to watch. You go to Netflix, you click Netflix. But you can't go to Netflix and watch HBO lineup. You have to change the frequency and go to the HBO frequency to see what's happening on HBO. You can't go to HBO and expect to watch a ball game that's going on ESPN. No, you have to change the frequency to ESPN. But practically, you have access to all of the different platforms and networks. We all do, if you paid for them. We all have the ability to have access to all of them. But you can only watch one at a time. So it's a matter it's like you can only focus on one thought at a time, because thoughts are on levels of frequencies, or what we call vibrations. So it's a matter of where we direct our attention or our energy or our focus will depend on what we're hearing. And we have learned through this 94 days of mind training that there are two thought systems that are out here. One thought system we call reality, or we call what? God or love. All those are just terms, synonymous labels. I mean, don't lose the content of the message by the names that we might use here. We have to communicate, so we have to use language. And sometimes language become a block to us based on what our conditioning is. But we don't want to let language to become a block to the essence of what we're trying to communicate here today in this session. And so what we're saying is that, two thought systems have emerged. One that's been there all the time, which we call what? Heaven or eternity or God or love. That's always has been. We have defined which God is undefinable, or love is undefinable. It can only be experienced, but for the sake of communication, we attribute some characteristics to the idea of a supreme being. That the supreme being is that which is timeless, that which is formless, that which is what has no beginning, it has no end, that which is unalterable. We use the word heaven, that which is real, that which is true, that which is what unchangeable. We contribute these attributes to an unlimited and all present, all knowing entity we call God or love or heaven, whatever your conditioning or training has been, whatever resonates with you as what you identify as a supreme being or creator is another word that we use. But let's not get hung up on the words. Words are just pointers. What we're talking about is what words are inadequate to describe anyway. How can you describe that which is infinite? What word would you use? Because the moment we apply a word to it, we put it in a box, or we limit it. And so we've done damage more than we've done good. But for the sake of communication, we have to use words. Okay. So let's just agree that, hey, we'll go through the exercise, gather the idea, and apply the idea. That's what it's all about. Today, we're going to introduce another idea. So what we have understood that some of the ideas that are presented in these presentations may be startling to you. Why? Because they may be different or ideas that have not crossed your awareness. We said that even some of these ideas might be what you might even resist some of them. Why? Because that's not your conditioning. You may be uncomfortable. They may be even unbelievable to you. Because you only know what you have experienced. You only can live at the level of your awareness. I cannot expect anyone to live beyond their awareness. And so what you have not been exposed to, meaning it's a transcendence or a greater awareness that's out there available. But what we haven't experienced or what we don't know doesn't mean that that's all there is to know, unless we box ourselves in only to what we have experienced. So we have to be open. We have to be open-minded. And so on the one hand, you got the thought system that has always been there. We call the thought system of God. That which is eternal. That which is changeless. That which God creates only. That which is beyond learning. See, it's beyond what you can learn. We're talking about having a direct experience. We're not talking about God or talking about faith or talking about religion. We're talking about having what like the scripture says, that I may know him or that I may know myself. We're talking about a knowing. We're talking about an intimate experience here. We're talking about an advanced awareness of that transcend ideas, that transcends doctrine, that transcends history. We're talking about timeless things. We're talking about formless things in time and space and in form. So we're transcending the limitations of this world. That's why we call this advanced spirituality. This is advanced spirituality. So you have come into a space and a place where what we go beyond the elementary things of religion. We get knee deep into the knowing of the infinite intelligence that's been made available to all of us. So thank you for joining us. And so this thought system that we're talking about, it's beyond time and space. It's not limited by this world. The thought system that we're talking about, it has no opposites. Like love, it has no opposite. Love is all there is. Like the reality of what a supreme being we might call God. God has no opposite. From the point of view of the Course, the idea is that there's God and there's nothing else. Imagine that. There's God and there's nothing else. But we know that there's what? That we exist, we are conscious, and that we're aware. And it appears that we are separate from this thing we're calling God, or this thing we're calling love, saying like we are this separate entity. But in reality, we're not. In reality, again, like we said, we share this one being. Like we share the one life, the one breath. We share the one blood. We share the one being and only being that there is. We share the being of God. There's not God being and then our being, but there's one being. And we share that one being. So there's equality in this relationship that we're talking about, in this thought system that we call the thought system, God, or the will of God. And then finally, there's no beginning and no ending in this thought system. What we're talking about is what has always been and what will always be. And then finally, it merely is. Meaning that what? It's pure presence. It always is in the present. This thought system is always present. The source of all things is always what? Present. We call it light. We use the terminology light. So that's one thought system. And then on the other hand, there's another thought system, which we call the ego thought system. And this thought system of the ego came from this idea that somehow this one being called God who created the one self through extension. He extended himself and called it creation. Or he called it the I am. And so this creation that he created, or that, and I don't want to get into the pronouns, he, she, because God is not a he or she. But the reality of the supreme being extended what it is, and he called what he extended himself, or he called it the I am. And in this extension, there was no separation from the creator and what it extended. He merely extended himself. So ideas, and in that extension is basically all the thoughts that is within the creator. Every thought of God. He extended every thought, every intelligence, every idea. God extended it and called it the I am. And something happened after the extension. And this all happened before the world was, in time, before time and space was. Well, somewhere in that experience, that which was extended in the mind of that which was extended crept the idea of separation. What would it be like to be separate from my creator? Is it possible? Can I become an individual self, detached from this one self, this one being? Can I become an individuated being? Which is absolutely impossible. Why? Because ideas leave not their source. Thoughts leave not their source. What the creator creates in true creation, there is no separation. What is created and who and what creates are the same. Like when you look up at the sun and you see the sun rays, it appears that the sun rays are what's separate from the sun, but they're not. They're just a reflection of what the sun. And so what's in the sun is in the rays. And what you'll always notice is what the rays, what they migrate back into the sun. Why? Because there's no separation. If you go to the ocean and you walk the shores of the ocean and you watch wave after wave come into the ocean shore, as though that these waves are something separate from the depth of the ocean. And they have this temporary expression only to emerge back into the ocean. So there's appeared to be a separate expression, but in reality, it's not a separate expression. That's what seems to be a separate expression is an expression of the one source, the ocean itself. So likewise, that which God creates, or that which God created was himself, and he called himself the I am, or he called himself the son. This is my son. This is the son of me. This is my offspring. Eventually that son somehow entertained an idea of separation from the father. And that's impossible. It's not even possible. It can't be done. The one being can't be split into billions of pieces. Like the story of Humpty Dumpty that sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king men couldn't put Humpty back together again. That's the idea that was applied to the father-son relationship, to the one being, that God fell off the wall, and he now have become these billions and billions of separate peoples, separate beings, separate souls, called humanity. And so we believe that that really happened. And so we now have separated from God. So the next thing to do is go and make a world. And so we made the world in time and space, and made it totally opposite of the nature of God, made it totally opposite of the nature of heaven. And so in this world, that's why you see in this world things seem to be falling apart and decaying all the time. Why? Because they're not real. This world is not real. This world is a result of an idea of separation that somehow slipped into the awareness of what God created, which is called his son. And in that idea created this whole universe. And that's why you'll notice everything in this universe, if you study it, for the most part, it will communicate back to you that separation is real. Why? Because everything is separate in this physical world. Everything is it's not connected. It's not unified. Everything communicates back to you through through your 5 physical senses, that nothing is joined. There's no oneness. That love has been broken. That's why we have so much trouble with relationships. That's why there's so much trouble among nations. That's why there's so much turmoil and war and fighting among countries. Why? Because this whole thought system of separation, which we call the ego thought system, which is totally opposite of oneness, totally opposite of God, it communicates back to us that God has failed. That love has been broken apart. And so we find ourselves trying to find our way, find our purpose. We try to build these individual lives apart from what? Apart from the reality of our oneness with our Creator, thinking that the Creator is off somewhere up the sky, or you know, somewhere separate and apart from us. And so we have these what individual personal lives that we what look out into the world and try to find what significance, where we try to find importance, where we try to find ourselves, where we try to accumulate. We figure if we can accumulate a lot of things, then our self concept of ourself would be grandiosity, or that if we can fit into this group or that group, or if we could have this car or have this girl or have this family or this child, or if we could just have these things, it would make things better. It makes me feel better. But you ever notice that eventually like I said, everything here passes away. Everything here eventually returns back into the dust, or the nothing from which it came. Why is that? Because it's only a temporary experience that is not real. It's based in unreality. Because in reality is changeless, like God Himself. Love itself is changeless, and it's all encompassing. It doesn't divide. It multiply and divide again, and multiply and divide again. And you'll notice in this world, everything is divided, and then it multiplies and it divides again, and divide, as though, like we said, Humpty Dumpty can never be put back together again. And so we find ourselves in a world of sin, guilt, and fear, and trying to navigate this thing. And then we get to a place in our life that there's so much pain that we cry out, "Oh God, where are you?" So let me stop that. That was just an introduction. Let me stop that. So to get started on today's lesson, which is today's idea that we're introducing, is I am. Notice now what we said. God created what God created. He called it the I am. I am that. I am. Meaning what He created and what He is are the same. What creation creates and what it is the same. It's not different. Every seed is produced after its own kind. That's a universal law. So if God is to create, He has to create like unto Himself. So everything that is likened to Himself is what He created. Everything that is not likened to Himself, that means God didn't create it. That means that it was made out of this ego thought system of separation. You got it? And so today's idea, I am as God. I am as God. See, I am that I am. That's basically what that's saying. I am that I am. I am that I am. And so I am as God created me. And so how did God create us? In the creation story, it says that God created humanity in His image and His likeness, which aligns with the principle of every seed produces after its own kind. But what God created was not a physical being. God created like Himself, which is a timeless, formless being. So at the core essence of who we really are, beyond these limited bodies that we appear to be appearing here as, but what we are at our essential self is a timeless and a formless being, just like our Creator. Timeless and formless, but we find ourselves in time and space and in form. So what are we going to do with that? Does that make a difference? Does that prove that that we were that we did change eternity? No, it doesn't. What it does prove is that we would have to be absolutely in a trance or in a dream or in a place of fantasy to think that who we really are these physical bodies. And so we have embraced this body identification as ourself, which is totally limited, totally frail, has a beginning, meaning it has a birth date, has a ending, has a point in time that these bodies would no longer exist, called death. So that can't be the creation of God. God, there is, God is light, like the scripture says, and in him there is no darkness at all. So in God there is no death. So where did the death come from? Where does the idea of death come from? It would have to come from a dream or fantasy of something that is opposite to life. And it changes all the time, and it moves and it changes. And so it says, I am as God created me. So this idea here is huge in this mind training course that we're taking. This is probably one of the most important realities that we have to grasp if we are going to have the experience of ourself, of our true nature. If we're going to have the universal experience, like Paul said, of the knowing of God, that I may know him, that I may know the reality of my oneness with the Father. And if you look at Jesus' whole life, it was all about I and the Father are one. Or when you see me, you see the Father. That I only see, I only say, I only do that which I see and I hear that my Father is doing, because we are one. We are of the same being. We're not separate. God is not off somewhere and I'm here. The only way that there can be a separation is that humanity would have to walk away into a dream of separation. And that's symbolic of what happened in the story of the prodigal son. Prodigal son, he was just safe at home when everything was cool. Everything was A-okay. He had no need of nothing. Death was not even an idea. Scarcity, not an idea. Fear, guilt, sin, judgment, sickness, disease, that wasn't even an idea in the mind of God creation. It wasn't at his father's house. Everything was provided. There was a need of nothing. But somehow, some way, the prodigal son got this idea that his father was withholding something for him, and that it was out there. It wasn't in the house, but it was out there in the world. So what did he do? He asked for his inheritance, and the father didn't hesitate. Why? The father knew all along there's nothing out there but dreams of separation. That's fantasies, wild imaginings. He knew that. So he didn't even flinch when the son said, I want my inheritance. God knows that what he created, the only inheritance that it has, the only inheritance that it has is the one being that we are. He was not even concerned about losing his son. Why? Because what God is, what reality is, it can't be lost. So the idea that we walk around in these human bodies thinking that we could be lost, you can't be lost. Or think that people are lost. We say, oh, they lost, they're unsaved, they're this, they're that. These ideas are coming from our ego thought system of separation. That's why Jesus said, all that you have given unto me, I have lost none. That's why Paul said, God was in Christ, reconciling the whole world back into himself. None was lost. So love has forgotten no one. So in our ego self, we think people are lost. We think people are going to hell. We think people, because of what they're doing in this dream, are going to hell. That's the way we think. And we send them to hell. In some of our religions, we say they are going to hell, only we're going to heaven. And so when we do that, we make of God an unloving father. The only hell that one can go to is the hell that we are in now when we believe in this idea of separation. That is hell. When you think that you're separate from what your creator. That is very hellish. Very tormenting. Very much a place of suffering, of anguish, of anxiety, of fear, sickness, guilt, lack, all that. That's what hell is. And it can only be experienced in a dream. Because in reality, there is no hell. So again, it's something that man made, an idea of man. It's not an idea of God. Hell is not a God idea. God is light. In him, there's no darkness. He's not like humanity, who separated. It doesn't think that way. But we try to make God in our image. That which created us in oneness and in love, we try to turn around now and make that which is one in love and equality. We try to make him into our image, to have a attitude, to have emotions, to require sacrifices, to be fearful, one that needs to be feared. You know what he say, rule by strength. You know how we in the world, they say, countries, we need to rule by strength. God doesn't rule by strength. In fact, God doesn't rule at all. He merely is. Love is. Light is. Doesn't worry about dreams and fantasies and wild imaginings that we might drum up in our separated minds. It doesn't concern him at all. Or her. Or it. Again, I'm not getting into the pronouns. What I'm talking about here is transcends pronouns. Even Paul called it and said in Christ there's neither male nor female, bond nor free. We're all in all. We're all the one. See? Paul called the revelation of oneness. And what we're going through in these exercises is to catch the revelation of oneness. Not just in our intellectual knowing, but in the universal experience, to where we get to a point where we see from the point of view of the reality of oneness, and that we know without a shadow of a doubt that we are at home in the heart of God, where He would have us be, or her, or it. There is no separation. The separation only happens in dreams. I'd have gone off on a tangent again. But let me get back on course. So, I am as God created me. It's so important that we get this. That we remain as God created us. That we're not body, mind identification. That's not who we are. That's what we appear to be experiencing. A human experience is what they call it. But who we are is timeless and formless. And we remain that way. The prophet Jeremiah picked up on it in Jeremiah 1 when he said when he said that God spoke to him and said He said, before you was formed, before you was formed in your mother's womb, what did God say? He said, I knew thee. I knew you. Why did he know him? Because he created him. That he extended himself. So Jeremiah, before form, was timeless and formless. And he existed. So Jeremiah wasn't just Jeremiah didn't come into existence, when he was birthed out of his mother's womb, like we think, naturally. You didn't just come into existence when you was birthed out of your mother's womb and was given a birthday and a social security number and a name. No. It was before you was formed in your mother's womb. God said you existed. He knew you. He knew me. Why? Because he knew himself. He knew what he created was himself. And himself was It was not a form that was subject to time and space. But we are eternal beings. So we remain what God created. So we remain untarnished, untouched, unstained by this world. We remain as God created us. He guarantees that. And so before I get over into that, I want to just read this from my book, The Way of Mastery, chapter 1. This is the very opening statement. Lesson 1 in The Way of Mastery. On page 2, it says the way that calls us home. There's a way that calls us to return back to our original way of being, a way of thinking. Why do we have to turn? The only reason we have to return because there's an idea that we left home. Like that's what the whole story of the prodigal son is. That the son walked away. But in reality, the son didn't go anywhere. Why? Because there's nowhere to go. Like we said, there's only God and there's nothing else. So wherever we go, God is. The writer picked it up over in the Old Testament. I think it was David. He said, if I make my bed in hell, I'll be there. He said, if you make your bed in hell, he said, I will be there. Why? Because God is everywhere present. Love is everywhere present. There is no place that love is not, that God is not. So even in this dream of separation, guess what? In reality, God is there. Because you are there. Because you're one with God. So God is everywhere present. That means that you are everywhere present. So we've never been without the presence of God. Because it's impossible. It's like trying to take the wet out of water. It's impossible. Can you take wet out of water? Can you take burning out of fire? No. When you get one, you get the other. So when you get the God is, you get the I am. God is, therefore we are the I am. And we're never to be separate. It can only happen in dreams and fantasies. In wandering thoughts. So this is Jesus speaking. He said, now we begin. And I think I began about 47 minutes ago. So this is Jesus speaking to us. He said, now we begin, beloved friends. So Jesus calls us friend. He said, I come forth to abide with you where you believe yourself to be. We believe we're here in these bodies. So he said, I come to abide with you there. Come to rest with you there. Know that I'm present. Jesus said, know that I'm present. He said, I must go away. If I don't go away, he said, it's expedient that I go away so that that I'll be everywhere present. I'll be formless. So there's no place I won't be. You see, right now, he said, in this physical body, I'm kind of trapped in this limitation. He said, but once I lay this body down, he said, I'll free myself of all the limitation and I can abide everywhere. So he said, I come forth to abide with you. So we're never alone. Our elder brother is always with us. Our elder brother is always with us. He said, well, we believe that we are. He said, I come not for myself. Notice now, he said, I don't come for myself, but I come for you. I come for you. And the you he's talking about is not the body identification. He's coming to commune and fellowship with the I am self that we are, that is formless and timeless. He said, I come not to teach you. Notice now, here we see this again. God is beyond teaching what can be taught. Love is beyond what can be taught. Who we are is beyond what can be taught. We can only be experienced. We're talking about having a direct experience of our reality. It's timeless and formless. In form. And in form. Having the experience in form. embodying that reality. Right now, we're talking about embodying the reality of our timelessness and our what formlessness. Embodying what? Our innocence. Embodying what? Our sinlessness. Being what? The express image of that here in form. Jesus had his time, and he did what? He got an A+. No doubts. Totally committed to the truth. And he played it out. Now it's our time. Now it's our time. And we want to fall on our knees and worship. He said, no, I don't need to worship. What you need to do is you need to be the what? You need to know who you are. That you are the what? You are the substance of things hoped for. That you are the evidence of things not seen. That's what you need to do. You are the light of the world. He said, I didn't come here to create a religion or make you religious. God doesn't have an ego. He doesn't need to be worshipped. God doesn't have an ego. He don't want all this religious stuff. He's not interested in that. What God is interested in, you knowing who you are. He's not interested in that. He's not interested in what more Pharisees and what Sadducees. God is only interested in himself. And he know what created. So he wants what? Himself to reflect back to himself. So he wants us what? To be the reflection, what he called the light of the world. In our full what? Glory. From glory to glory. It's like when you go plant seeds in the garden, what? You expect to harvest. You expect to see what you planted. Well, God is, his only expectation is to see the sons and daughters of God to come into their glory. What is their glory? The knowledge of yourself as the light of the world. Not that we have made ourselves into something else. No, you don't that. That's not what he planted. Not a world that is what? Falling apart. Not a world where there's, where humanity is killing one another and destroying one another and doing all kind of crazy things with the body and thinking in all kind of crazy, weird ways. That is totally opposite of what is real. He wants humanity to wake up from the dream. And stand in his reality. Now, not in the future, because there is no future. There's only the now. That's why it says now faith is what? The substance and the evidence. So right now, you and I are the substance and the evidence of what God guarantees is true. God says, show me. We won't say, oh, I want to worship, I want to pray. No. I want to give you a tithe and an offering. No. He said, I want you to know yourself. I want you to be the light. That's your function. Let your light shine in a world of darkness that needs it. Let the world know that you're innocent. Let the world know that the world is innocent. That there is no unloving father that's holding something against you. To hold something against humanity would be to hold something against himself. So God said, what? When I could swear by no greater, I swear by myself that you are blessed. Blessed means what? You're just like me. I am your inheritance. I am your friend, like Jesus said here. Beloved friends, mighty companions, that we're in the beloved. That there is now, therefore, what? No condemnation. There's no fear. Wake up from what? Wake up from the nightmare of separation. That's what the Father is waiting to see patiently. You know why he's waiting patiently? Because he guarantees that what he extended cannot be changed. That you cannot be changed. That's why this lesson today, it says what? It says what? I am as God what? Created me. You are as God created you. It can't be changed. It can't be altered. You are to the praise of his glory. You are to the praise of his glory. There is no glory if it doesn't come through you. God shares his glory with you. Why? Because you and God are one. So this thing's about God gets all the glory. That's human thinking. In the kingdom, in reality, in heaven, in reality, what? It's a shared being. We share in the glory. That's why he said, let the light shine. God can't get no glory without you. Why? Because you are what? The express image. Hebrews said it. We are the what? Express image. We are here to what? The express what? The imagination or what? The reality of who we are as sons and daughters of God. Not unlike our Father, or not aloof from our Father, or not separate from our Father. Like we see perpetuated in this what world? Fathers and sons, fathers and daughters, fathers and wives, separated. Separation is what communicated all through this natural world as a way to keep us from what? The reality of who we are. As to what? Place the doubt in our mind that what? It's not possible. Unity is not possible. Oneness is not possible. That's what this world is here trying to teach us. And to keep us what? Keep us in obscurity. Meaning what? Covering up the light. Covering up the reality. And in well-meaning sources, well-meaning institutions, who we look to what? To tell us the truth. That's where what? Most of what the wrong conditioning comes from. Come from religious communities who's not quite what? Don't quite understand who they are. And so they're perpetuating what? Fear-based theology to keep us what? Almost close, almost there, but you know, then there's this sense of what? Unworthiness pops up. Why? Because we're conditioned that way. That means that what? We're still what? Sold on the what? Body identification. We still value our what? Made self, the self that we made, over the what? The one that God created. And so he says, I come not for myself, but for you. I come for you. I come not to teach you, but to love you until you choose. Notice now, Jesus is here in his formless, timeless self to what? Inspire us to love us until we choose from the depth within our own being to set aside every illusion, every vain imagining, every dream of separation, every wandering, every prodigal trip, every detour into darkness, until we set aside all of the fantasies of being this individual self, separated from our Creator. He said, I'm here to love you until what? That we make this decision, that we choose from the depth of our being to set aside every illusion. Every illusion. And every means what? All. So to the point that we come to grips with the reality of who we are. That we are what? We are the creation of an eternal being. That we are timeless and formless beings. That we are the very self that God is. There is no difference. There is no distance. We are the what? Pure presence of our Father. That's why Jesus said it. When you've seen me, what? You've seen the Father. That's why Jesus said, what? I and the Father are one. Well, he was speaking as a son. And we are all what? Sons and daughters. So we are what? Jesus is no different than us in terms of what? Equality. He don't have a rank above us. We think that way. We've been taught that way. But that's why he said, "What? Where I am, there you up. There you shall be also." Well, where is he? He's in this. He what? But he's sharing the same being that God is, and we share that same being. I and you and me. What's in the vine? What's in the branch? See, all his whole message was about oneness. His whole message was to come and bring us out of the dark ages of separation and fear and guilt, the ages of sacrifice, and return us to the place that we never left. To return us in our minds to the place that we never left. So we was only dreaming of separation, only dreaming of what? Being prodigal, only dreaming of having fantasies of what would it be like Adam did and Eve. You remember? They did the same thing. They entertained the idea of what? God was holding something back on them. And so what? They went prodigal and went searching into the world. God said there's nothing out there. But it was all symbolic, the tree, you can take the story literally if you want to, but there's nothing literal about God. The only thing about God is that you can experience it. So stories can only be used as tools to point us to the truth, to the light. The story is not the light. That's why Jesus was that. But don't get all caught up in my body. Don't get all caught up in worshiping the body. The body is temporary. It's only a communication device. Don't worship it. Peter, James, and John said, "No, we should need to build a monument here and worship it." Why? Because you transcend. You showed us a little glimpse of timelessness and formlessness. He said, "No. I'm not adding to the religious ideas that have kept man separate." He said, "I'm not adding to that. We're not building no monument." He said, "God is not to be worshipped." I'm not to be worshipped. Only difference between me and you is I'm your elder brother. That's it. But we are equality. That's why he said Paul picked up on it, Paul picked up on it in Philippians chapter 2, verse 5. He said, let this mind be in you that was also in Christ. He said, you don't need to think like me. He said, you need to have the mind of Christ. He said, you need to abandon your way of thinking. The way the world has conditioned you, the way religion have conditioned you, the way the secular world have conditioned you. He said, the way that you have conditioned yourself. He said, you need to abandon all that. He said, let this mind be in you that was also in Christ. So there's a mind of Christ that we need to let or to allow to be our way of thinking. And then he went on to say he said that being in the form of God. In other words, he's saying as a human, he was in the form of God, meaning there was no separation. When he was in the body, he said, I'm still in the form of God. So us being here, aware of a body that we are attached to, we can say the same thing. Being in the form of God. We being in the form of God right now. We are We are the love of God in form. So Philippians 2:5 said, being in the form of God, he thought it not robbery. He thought he was not robbing God or taking anything from God. He said he thought it not robbery to be equal with God. Because in God there's only equality. In God there's only innocence. In God there's only oneness. So Jesus knew that. So he was not afraid to say it. That being in the form of God, I thought I wasn't taking anything away from God, but saying that I have equality with him, because I do. And we, being a part of that same creation, that same one being, we can stand right now and declare that we have equality with God. I told you these lessons says things that are startling, sometimes even unbelievable, but it's true. And Jesus didn't mince word. And I've come to the point in my life, guess what? I'm not mincing words. It is what it is. We are who we are. We are as God created us. I have quit trying to remake myself into something else. I am what the Father made or created. I am that. I am. You are that. You are. All humanity, none excluded. Don't care what has taken place in time and space. In reality, there is no separation. There's only the one. There's only the innocence that we are. There is now, therefore, no condemnation. See? In them that have been reconciled into Christ. Well, who have been reconciled into Christ? He said, God was in Christ reconciling what? All the world, all humanity. No one's left out. Love has forgotten no one. So until we're able to understand this and see from God's point of view, which Paul said it was a mystery that was held back in time past, but now it's been made manifest. That Christ in us, or Christ as us, which is a more correct interpretation. Christ and us are one. Christ as us, that we are one with God. That's the hope of glory. That is the hope or the expectation of the glory of God. That mankind in divinity, they're one and the same. So we are this expression of love and form. That's who you are. We are the light of the world. That's who you are. So when we walk in this mind that was in Christ, then everything on this planet will support that. That's why he was able to do what he was able to do when he was here, because he knew who he was. And even the earth knew that he knew who he was. So that's why the earth obeyed him. That's why the wind obeyed him. That's why the water obeyed him and became wine. Wasn't that he had some supernatural power? No. His mind was at the level, he transcended the earthly body identification, and he embraced the mind of God, which he was. And now it's our turn. What mind are you embracing? The ego thought system of separation, or the reality of our oneness? I'm going to go on pause for a minute. Just hang on for a second.
Lord, there's so many things that I want to thank you for. Lord, I thank you for your grace. I thank you for your mercy, God. I thank you for your love. Thank you for favor, oh God. God, if I had 10,000 tongues, I couldn't say enough thank yous, and I couldn't praise you enough. So in this song, I'll simply tell you I love you. And God, I thank you for everything you've done. Lord, there's so many things that you've done for me. Blessings unconditional, they seem to overtake me. Your hand of mercy proving faithful and true. Jesus, how can I express my thanks to you for your grace and kindness, oh agent of days. I'll give you thanks, oh Lord, now and always. Oh, I just want to say thank you for your love. Thank you. Thank you for the blood. Thanks to you for all the times that you brought me through. Lord, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your grace. Thank you, Lord, for keeping me safe. Thanks to you that I can share the good news of a Savior, to give someone a reason just to tell you thanks. Oh Lord, yeah, thank you, Lord. Lord, it's not enough to give a simple praise to the one who has blessed me in so many ways. Nothing I could say or do could really show my gratitude to you, Lord. One God, one love, one faith. To you I give you praise. Three blessed Trinity, you mean so much to me. And you showered me with love, even when I turned away. Lord, I can never repay you, so I'll just.
All right. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your patience. So, to finish this statement, Jesus is saying here that he has come not for himself, but for us. Not to teach us, but to love us. Until we choose from the depth within our own being to set aside every illusion. So in our lifetime, it is possible for us to relinquish every illusion that we have about ourselves. It is possible. It's almost like we're placed in the most difficult conditions. The most difficult conditions. This is one of the low, to be here on the planet Earth is a very low vibration in the sense. But we're placed here in the lowest vibration to only transcend to the highest reality of who we are. And we can do it. Jesus showed us. He did it. He was born just like us in a body of limitation. But he had to what? He had to listen or be what? Sensitive to the teacher or the internal teacher that was in him, teaching him about what the truth is. So Jesus, what? He was very, not, the word is not empathic, but he was very in tune. He was very sensitive to the internal teacher that was within his, what? That came into this time-space continuum with him, which all of us come here with the light within us. We all are born with the light within us. And Jesus became sensitive to that light very early in his life, to the point that when he was 12 years old, he knew without a doubt who he was and what his mission was. And he astonished the world. He astonished the spiritual leaders. And he had to become that way by what? Even denouncing the conditioning of his parents. He would not embrace the condition of his parents. He would not embrace some of the ideas that his parents were leveraging on him based on their religious conditioning and upbringing through the Jewish traditions. Jesus didn't accept a lot of the ideas because they were not, he knew them not to be true because it didn't align with the reality that God is light. He didn't embrace the traditions that mankind had made of God and a loving Father, and accused God of what? Works or acts of darkness. He didn't embrace any of that. He rejected a lot of what Joseph and Mary tried to teach him. He said, no. God is what? God is a loving God. And you're making of God and a loving Father. You're telling me that the earthly Father cares about me more than the supreme loving God? Jesus said, no, that's not possible. And so because he stood for the truth and for the light and for reality, all of the infinite intelligence that's available to all of us, he received it. And so a lot of these things he discovered inwardly. He turned inward. and inquired of himself, who am I? Father, if I am who you say I am, I believe you. And they called him a what? A lunatic. They called him a lunatic because what? Because he stood up for the truth. When you start standing up for the real truth and nothing but the reality of the real truth of who you are, people will start perceiving you as a lunatic. Who does this boy think he is, or this girl? Who do these people think they are? Talking about they are one with God. That they are what? Timeless and formless being. What do you mean? That what? That you remain as God created you. We knew you when you was like, 4th grade. You Cat and Oliver's boy. I'm just being comical here. I'm just being comical because I don't want us to get in such a serious mode that we like, oh, I missed it. No, we have not missed anything. You are in the right place at the right time. You have not missed nothing. You are right where you ought to be. Listening to something that you have tuned into. You have flipped the channel and said, I want to know. I want to get on the channel of reality, and that's what this is. Truly Foundation. These messages are sponsored by Truly Foundation, which is we're a nonprofit organization dedicated to teaching advanced spirituality. That's what you have dialed into. So you're in the right place at the right time. You attracted yourself to this vibration. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. But I'm your temporary guide. I'm only here to point you to the truth. I'm only here to turn you inward so that you can inquire, have a self-inquiry. I'm only here to point you inward, just like Jesus did. I'm only here to point you inward so you can inquire of yourself. Who am I? What am I? Why am I? When am I? I'm only here to say, hey, let's have some time of contemplation and meditation. Because we desire to know the truth. And God has placed eternity in all of us. So we all desire to know the truth. And at some point, like the prodigal son, we all will come to ourselves. Like he did. Scripture said he came to himself when he hit rock bottom. And God was his rock at the bottom. Because he heard the Spirit say, go back to your father's house. And he said, I'll go. See? So like we said earlier, if you make your bed in hell, God is there. So no matter whether you're incarcerated, out incarcerated, imprisonment, real imprisonment happens in the mind. It doesn't happen, because they constrain the body. Real imprisonment. It happens in our minds, where we imprison ourselves in a false belief. Jesus said, in every illusion. He says, so I'm here to waiting on you to choose from the depth of your own being. Notice, from the depth of your being, from your greatest understanding and from your greatest love. He wants you to choose to set aside. Notice, we just set aside illusions. Just like you wake up from a dream and you just walk away. You come out of a movie, you don't carry the movie as though it's real. You don't go down, look down, be afraid to drive down the street because you think you're going to get blown up or shot up. No, it was in a movie. So you walk away from the movie. You wake up from a dream, you walk away. You say, it wasn't real. But what we do, what we have done to cover up the reality is that we believe that we're these individual selves. And God is separate from us. And we're separate from each other. That we have separate thoughts. When in reality, there's only the one. That's what Jesus meant when he said when the eye is single, the body is full of light. What is he talking about? Single-mindedness. When we understand that we hold every thought of God in reality, and our thoughts are not separate from him. There's only one will. The Father and Son, we only have one will. That there's only oneness. Then everything become what? Light. Everything become what? Everything becomes usable to wake up what? The entire planet. Well, God can use what? All of the stuff that we even ran after. He uses it what? To wake us up. And he even uses us. We become what? Part of a ministry of reconciliation. That we share with others that what? God has reconciled you back into himself. We implore people to what? Wake up gently from the dream. That's what I'm here doing. That's what I'm here being. I'm not doing anything. I'm just being myself. I'm being the light of the world. God wants you to be wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Doesn't matter. Washing the dishes, going to the post office, playing game, watching television, making love, playing with your kids. Doesn't matter what you're doing. Working. He wants you to be the light of your world. Where you walk in the truth with it, where you walk in the full glory of who you are, and the joy and the peace. So he says, from the depth within your own being, to set aside every illusion you ever given credence to. So everything that is not of God that we've given credence to. And the one main thing is what? This false self that we have created. This belief in what? This belief in separation. This belief that we're separate from God and from each other. This belief that we are guilty and that we're sinners. This belief that there's scarcity and there's lack. This belief that we have enemies and God has an enemy. All that's falsity. All that's in the world of fantasies and dreams. And we created it ourselves. We imprison ourselves with these fantasies. We've fallen into a deep sleep with these fantastic ways of thinking, this ego thought system of separation. And it's been handed down from generation to generation to generation. And now we find ourselves here in 2022. And when we look out into the world and what's happening in the world, we would say, you may not say it out loud, but you would say, it's like the world's going to the hell in a hell basket, killing and destroying each other. Nations destroying against nation, fighting and warring against nation. The climatic conditions of the earth, the environment, it's going crazy. Volcanoes and earthquakes and extreme heat, extreme cold, windstorms, rainstorms, every kind of disaster that you can imagine. It's happening now. Killings and wars and fightings, atrocities. People are doing all kind of strange things with their bodies. Why? Because they think they're bodies. So they're painting them up, tightening them up, squeezing them up, tatting them up, selling them, doing everything, trying to switch them. We're doing all these things because we're turned away from who we are. And when we turn away from light, you can not only you can only turn to darkness, and darkness is not even real. So we're hallucinating, imagine ourselves in a world separate from our Creator, in a world separate from love and oneness. And so we sit back and watch this. Notice now, you can make a choice and sit back and watch this. That's what Jesus meant when he said, we're in this world, but we're not of this world. In other words, we're in this seemingly place of time and space where all the darkness is showing showing its ass. But I want you to know you're not of this. And he's talking to all humanity. You have to see, you choose. That's why you say choose from the depth of your heart. You have to choose whether you're going to bury your head into sin and take part in the movie of separation, or whether you're going to be the light of the world, give the world a way out, become the bridge for people to cross over into their reality. That's what it means being the light of the world is. Or you're going to participate in the madness, be this angry, mad person because of your situation, circumstance, and condition, and blaming it on everything, blaming it on where you was born and what race you was born in, what country you was born in, and why you was unfairly treated, and how you was molested, how you was hurt, and how all these things, we let these things be a part of all these things are part of covering up the truth, of obscuring, of covering up, of keeping you away from the reality of who you are. But there comes a time in everyone's life, God guarantees it, that you will be like the prodigal son and say, there must be a better way. I'm going back to my father's house. That's what happens in everybody's life. He guarantees that would happen in all humanity's life. We may not know it. We may not be aware of it when it happens, but he said he guarantees it. That is the promise of God, of salvation. That's what salvation is, that God promised that man would wake up from his dream of separation, his fantasies, his wild imaginings, his mind wandering. And this is just one way. This is what we're offering in this 1 year long course of mind training. That's what we're offering, a way for humanity to wake up. These broadcasts goes out throughout the entire world. And the Holy Spirit has a way it has a way to navigate or to connect those who will be resonate with the messaging here, to bring them to a place a way out. This is a portal. So this platform, Truly Foundation, is a portal for humanity to wake up. That's what God has created here. That's what God and I have co-created here. And I'm so happy that you're here. So he says, Jesus said that we would lay aside every illusion that we have given credence to, and to remember the truth that is alone is true. And what is the truth? The truth is you remain as God created you. You remain that way. So I'm going to read through this right quick. It says, today we continue with the one idea which brings complete salvation. The one statement which makes all forms of temptation powerless. What's the form of temptation? Anything that keeps you believing that you are what you're not. It says the one thought which renders the ego silent and entirely undone. When you embrace the reality that you are part and parcel of the living God, and you remain that way, you render the ego silent and entirely undone. You are as God created you. The sounds of this world are still. The sights of this world disappear. And all the thoughts that this world ever held are wiped away forever by this one idea. You are as God created you. Here is salvation accomplished in this one statement, in this one idea. Here is sanity restored to you and to me. This is how we restore sanity in this low vibrational world, by embracing the truth of who we are, that we remain as God created us. We're not sinners. We're not filthy rags. We have equality with the very essence of life. That's who we are, and we remain that way. We are who we were before we was formed in our mother's womb. So we have to go and study and discover what that is. And that's what these lessons are helping us to understand. Who are you before you were? Who were you? Who are you without the birth of your body? You existed before then. So we're studying to find out what that is. It's called metaphysics. And Jesus was the greatest metaphysics that ever walked the planet. And now I'm studying metaphysics. You are studying metaphysics if you're listening to these lessons, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about timeless and formless realities, which is what we are. It says true light is strength. True light, true illumination, it is strength. So strength comes from knowing. Strength comes from knowing. Strength comes from knowing and being what you know. Strength comes from knowing. Doesn't come from lifting weights. It comes from knowing. Strength doesn't come from piling up guns in your house. It comes from knowing. Peace comes from knowing. It doesn't come from you fortifying yourself with all the guns and ammunition. That's just fear. It says strength. It said the light is strength, and strength is sinlessness. So true strength is the awareness of your sinlessness, or your innocence. You are the innocent, holy home of God. Sin can't touch you. Sin is a false idea that was created by humanity. Sin doesn't really exist other than in the mind of a sleeping fantasy, of a dreaming fantasy of separation. It says, the sounds of this world are still, the sights of this world disappear. No, I've already done that. It says true light is strength, and strength is sinlessness. It has nothing to do with what you do or don't do. It has nothing to do with this body identification. Sinlessness has to do with the reality of who you are as an infinite, timeless, formless being, as a sharing being of God. To introduce yourself or think of yourself as sin, you have to think of God as sin, because you and God are one. In God, there's no darkness. It says, if you remain as God created you, and you do, you must be strong, and light must be in you. He who ensures your sinlessness or innocence must be the guarantee of strength and light as well. God is the guarantee of who you are. He said when he could swear by no greater, he swore by himself, about you. He said, you are as God created you. Darkness cannot obscure the glory of God's son and daughter. You stand in light, strong in the sinlessness or the innocence in which you were created, and in which you will remain throughout eternity. That's good news. That's the good news that Jesus talked about. Go into the world with the good news. This is really good news. It says, today we will again devote the first 5 minutes of each waking hour to the attempt to feel the truth in us. So we begin each 5 minutes of the hour for the day by saying, I am as God created me. I am his creation, eternally. I am as God created me. I am what? His creation eternally. That is our mantra for today. So make every effort to do this today. It says, each one you do will be what? A giant stride towards your release. So today we're going to practice what is true, saying what is true about ourselves. I am as God created me. I am his creation eternally. So we're going to make milestones today by what? Reinforcing this thought system of truth about who we are. Wow. I'm going to have to stop right there. Thank you so much for being here with me. Love you so much. And we're going to end this broadcast the same way that we started, with this love of this song of thanks. We give thanks. He said, only prayer that we should render a prayer of what? Thanksgiving. Because what? It is what it is. So we thank you, God, for what? That it is what it is. That I am who I am. That I am as you created me. I thank you for that. And that it remains. I'll remain that way eternally. And nothing can change it. Not even my what? Ego self. Not even the what? Not even the world I made. Come back tomorrow. We have another important lesson to talk about. Thank you so much. Love you so much. And again, we're going to end this with a song of thanks. Bye-bye. Oh, forgive me there. Uh-oh. It may not play for me. But anyway, we're going to go. And no, I'm going to keep my word. I'll reload it. I love this song. It's a good way for us to go out today.
Lord, there's so many things that I want to thank you for.
See you next time. Love you.
Lord, I thank you for your grace. I thank you for your mercy, God. I thank you for your love. Thank you for favor, oh God. God, if I had 10,000 tongues, I couldn't say enough thank yous, and I couldn't praise you enough. So in this song, I'll simply tell you I love you. And God, I thank you for everything you've done. Lord, there's so many things that you've done for me. Blessings unconditional, they seem to overtake me. Your hand of mercy proving faithful and true. Jesus, how can I express my thanks to you for your grace and kindness, oh, agent of days. I'll give you thanks, oh Lord, now and always. Oh, I just want to say thank you for your love. Thank you. Thank you for the blood. Thanks to you for all of the times that you brought me through. Lord, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your grace. Thank you, Lord, for keeping me safe. Thanks to you that I can share the good news of a Savior, to give someone a reason just to tell you thanks. Oh Lord, yeah. Thank you, Lord. Lord, it's not enough to give a simple praise to the one who has blessed me in so many ways. No, say